A janitor thinks he can fix this. Victoria Sterling's voice dripped with disgust as she gestured toward the sparking engine. Her diamond bracelet caught the boardroom lights as she dramatically covered her nose. God, you even smell like motor oil. Jamal Washington froze in the doorway, trash bags still clutched in his calloused hands. 20 executives stared at him like he was an unwelcome stray dog. Victoria stood up, her red Louis Vuitton heels clicking against marble floors. She walked to Jamal close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume mixed with contempt. Here's a deal, maintenance boy. Fix this $2 million engine that mighty engineers couldn't repair, and I'll marry you right here. She snapped her fingers inches from his face. When you fail, and you will, security will escort you out permanently. The room fell silent. $50 million in contracts hung on this broken machine. Have you ever been dismissed so completely that someone bet their reputation you'd fail? Tech Vanguard Industries rose from Silicon Valley's concrete jungle like a glass monument to innovation. The 40-story tower housed America's most promising autonomous vehicle company, where billion-dollar dreams took shape in sterile laboratories and boardrooms that smelled of leather and ambition. Victoria Sterling had built this empire with ruthless precision. At 38, she commanded respect through fear. Her blonde hair always pulled into a perfect bun, her suits tailored to intimidate. The tech world called her a visionary. Her employees whispered different words behind closed doors. The company's crown jewel sat broken on the executive conference table, a revolutionary AG-guided engine designed to power their fleet of self-driving delivery trucks. This wasn't just any engine. It represented 3 years of development, 47 patents, and the engineering dreams of Silicon Valley's brightest minds. The machine could theoretically power autonomous vehicles with 93% efficiency, revolutionizing the delivery industry overnight. For 6 weeks, this machine had defied every attempt at repair. 3 separate teams of Ivy League engineers had failed. 67 diagnostic tests had yielded nothing but frustration and mounting pressure. The engine would start, run for exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds, then overheat and shut down with the same cryptic error code. Harmonic disruption detected. Jamal Washington knew every inch of Tech Vanguard's marble floors. For 3 years, he'd pushed his maintenance cart through these halls, invisible to the executives who stepped around him like furniture. His official title read technical consultant, but everyone knew the truth. He emptied trash cans, mopped floors, and endured the daily humiliation of being the most educated janitor in Silicon Valley. His community college engineering degree hung framed in his studio apartment, a bitter reminder of dreams deferred by medical bills and circumstances beyond his control. While his classmates had transferred to 4-year universities, Jamal had chosen sacrifice. His mother's cancer treatments came first always. The chemotherapy sessions cost $300 each. Insurance covered 60%. The math was simple and devastating. The engine crisis deepened each day. Victoria's morning meetings grew louder, her demands more unreasonable. She paced the boardroom like a caged predator, her heels clicking against marble in sharp, angry rhythms that made interns flinch. Coffee cups accumulated on conference tables like archaeological layers, marking the progression of her desperation. $67 million. She screamed at the engineering team during Tuesday's disaster meeting. That's what we lose if this engine doesn't work by Friday. $67 million that could have bought us market dominance in 3 major cities. The engineers, Harvard, MIT, Stanford graduates sat frozen in expensive suits, their laptops displaying the same error codes they'd been staring at for weeks. Their average salary exceeded $120,000 annually. The combined student debt totaled over $2 million. None of that mattered now. The engine's AI system refused to communicate properly with the mechanical components. Every time they thought they'd found the solution, the machine would overheat, smoke, and shut down. Team leader Marcus Brooks, MIT class of 2019, had dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. His team had tried everything: software patches, hardware replacements, complete system reinstalls. They'd consulted with automotive engineers from Detroit, AI specialists from Stanford, even brought in a Fangu consultant after. Someone suggested the office energy might be interfering with the machine. Victoria's eyes swept the room like searchlights, hunting for someone to blame. "Maybe we have too many people who don't belong here," she said, her gaze lingering on Jamal as he quietly replaced the water pitcher. "Dead weight that's dragging down our entire operation." The comment hit its mark. Several engineering team members glanced at Jamal, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to barely concealed agreement. Sarah Kim from Berkeley shifted uncomfortably. She'd worked 12-hour days for 6 weeks and couldn't solve the problem, yet somehow the suggestion that a janitor might be the weak link made twisted sense in their exhausted mind. Jamal pretended not to hear. He'd learned that invisibility was survival in this place, but his engineering mind couldn't stop analyzing the problem. Late at night, when he mopped the boardroom floors, he'd study the engine's blueprints left scattered on the table. The technical specifications told a story that the engineers seemed to miss. The engine was built in Germany using metric measurements, but the AI calibration software was developed in California using imperial units. A simple conversion error could create cascading problems. The pressure mounted like steam in a closed kettle. Security footage from the previous week showed Victoria deliberately scheduling Jamal's cleaning duties during important investor meetings. She'd point him out to potential partners, her voice carrying just loud enough for him to hear. "We believe in giving everyone opportunities, even our maintenance staff." Her tone suggested charity rather than employment. Email chains revealed worse. Internal communications referred to him as the cleaning guy, despite his official consultant title. Messages discussed his inevitable termination as a cost-cutting measure. One particularly cruel thread, initiated by Victoria herself, speculated about whether he could even read the company directory. HR manager Jennifer Walsh had participated, adding laughing emojis to comments about Jamal's limited vocabulary. The whispered conversations were equally brutal. Employees discussed his presence like an unfortunate necessity, a corporate diversity checkbox that management tolerated but didn't respect. "At least he's quiet," one marketing director had said. "Better than the last guy who actually tried to contribute to meetings." The German investors arrived on Wednesday, their black Mercedes sedans pulling up to Tech Vanguard's entrance like a funeral procession. These men represented 100 million euros in potential funding, money that could launch the company into global dominance. Klaus Müller, CEO of Autotech Bavaria, had flown from Munich specifically to evaluate Tech Vanguard's engine technology. His reputation for technical perfectionism was legendary. Companies either impressed him completely or failed spectacularly. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, former Tesla engineer and current board advisor, accompanied the delegation. Her reputation in automotive engineering was legendary. She designed power systems that had revolutionized electric vehicles, held 37 patents, and consulted for companies across 3 continents. Her presence meant this wasn't just a business meeting. It was a technical evaluation that could make or break Tech Vanguard's future. Dr. Rodriguez didn't suffer fools, didn't accept excuses, and could identify engineering flaws with surgical precision. The demonstration was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. The entire company held its breath. Marketing had already prepared press releases announcing the successful partnership. Sales teams had drafted proposals for European expansion. The cafeteria had ordered champagne for a celebration that everyone hoped would happen. Victoria's desperation showed in small ways. Her usually perfect makeup appeared slightly smudged by Wednesday evening. Her assistants scoured through hallways carrying endless cups of coffee and stress management supplements. The executive bathroom had become her private screaming room where she unleashed frustration that couldn't be displayed in public. Security guards reported hearing muffled shouting and the sound of expensive heels kicking metal trash cans. Meanwhile, Jamal continued his invisible existence. He watched engineers work 60-hour shifts, consuming energy drinks and making increasingly wild theories about the engine's problems. They blamed software conflicts, hardware incompatibilities, even electromagnetic interference from the building's Wi-Fi network. One desperate engineer suggested that the office's fan might be disrupting the machine's electronic harmony. But Jamal heard something they didn't. During his late-night cleaning sessions, when the office fell silent, he'd pause near the engine room. The machine made sounds, subtle vibrations, and frequency patterns that reminded him of his grandfather's garage in Detroit. Every engine had its own voice, Samuel Washington had taught him. You just had to know how to listen. This engine's voice sounded strained, like it was fighting against itself. Thursday morning brought chaos. The final diagnostic test had failed spectacularly, filling the boardroom with smoke and triggering the fire suppression system. Engineers stood dripping wet, their expensive laptops ruined, their reputations hanging by threads thinner than spider silk. The smell of burnt electronics, mixed with chemical fire suppressant, created an atmosphere of defeat that permeated the entire floor. Klaus Mueller watched the disaster unfold with Germanic stoicism, his expression revealing nothing. Dr. Rodriguez took detailed notes, her pen moving in sharp, precise strokes. The other German investors exchanged glances that suggested their private jets might be departing earlier than planned. Victoria convened an emergency all-hands meeting. 200 employees packed into the main auditorium, their faces reflecting various stages of panic and resignation. The German investors sat in the front row, their expressions unreadable behind designer glasses. Jamal stood in the back, near the emergency exits, invisible as always. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. We face our greatest challenge. Our revolutionary engine, the heart of our autonomous vehicle system, remains non-operational. Our engineering teams have exhausted conventional solutions. She paused, letting the weight of failure settle on the room like dust. Effective immediately, we will begin cost reduction measures. Non-essential personnel will be terminated, starting with positions that don't directly contribute to solving this crisis. The room fell silent, except for the whisper of air conditioning and muffled sobs from the back rows. Victoria's gaze swept across faces, hunting for someone to sacrifice to the corporate gods. Her eyes lingered on Jamal with predatory interest. That's when Jamal made his mistake. He raised his hand. "Ma'am," his voice carried clearly through the microphone-enhanced acoustics. "I think the problem might be in the harmonic frequency calibration, not the software integration." 200 heads turned toward him like sunflowers following light. The German investors leaned forward with sudden interest. Dr. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting from boredom to curiosity. Victoria's face transformed. Surprise gave way to rage, then something far more dangerous opportunity. But what Victoria didn't know about Jamal would change everything. The real story was just beginning. Detroit, 1995. The auto industry was bleeding jobs like a wounded giant, but Samuel Washington's garage on 8 Mile Road still hummed with purpose. At 72, he moved with the deliberate grace of a master craftsman, his weathered hands reading engines like sacred texts. 12-year-old Jamal pressed his face against the garage window, watching his grandfather work magic on a broken Mustang. The engine had been declared dead by 3 other mechanics, but Samuel saw something they missed. His fingers traced the engine block with the tenderness of a doctor examining a patient. "Come here, boy," Samuel called without looking up. "Time you learned something useful." That summer changed everything. While other kids played video games, Jamal spent his days in the cathedral of grease and steel that was his grandfather's domain. Samuel had been one of the first black foremen at Ford Motor Company, breaking barriers in the 1970s, when such achievements required extraordinary courage and skill. "Listen close," Samuel would say, placing Jamal's small hand on a running engine. "This machine's got a heartbeat. Feel that rhythm? That's 4 cylinders talking to each other. 80, 0 explosions per minute, all working in perfect harmony." The old man's philosophy was simple but profound. "Son, an engine doesn't care about your diploma or your skin color. It only responds to those who truly listen to its heartbeat. Respect the machine, understand its language, and it'll never lie to you." Samuel taught Jamal to diagnose problems through sound, vibration, even smell. A slight irregularity in engine rhythm could indicate worn bearings. A particular scent might reveal oil degradation or coolant leaks. These weren't skills taught in textbooks. They were inherited wisdom passed down through generations of men who understood that machines had souls. The lessons extended beyond mechanics. Samuel had survived decades in an industry that didn't welcome men who looked like him. He'd earned respect through undeniable competence, fixing problems that stumped engineers with advanced degrees. His reputation at Ford was legendary. Samuel Washington could resurrect any engine, no matter how hopeless it seemed. "White folks going to test you twice as hard," he told Jamal during those long summer afternoons. "Going to assume you're half as smart, but engines don't lie, boy. When you fix something they couldn't, suddenly your color doesn't matter so much." By age 16, Jamal could tear down and rebuild entire engines blindfolded. He understood the intricate dance of pistons, valves, and timing chains better than most automotive engineers. Community college professors were amazed by his intuitive grasp of mechanical principles that typically required years of study to master. But life had other plans. Samuel died during Jamal's senior year of high school, a massive heart attack, while working under the hood of a Cadillac. The funeral overflowed with Ford engineers, mechanics, and regular customers whose cars Samuel had saved. They spoke of his genius, his integrity, his ability to solve impossible problems with simple solutions. The garage closed forever. The tools were sold to pay medical bills. Jamal's inheritance wasn't money. It was knowledge, instinct, and a philosophy that would sustain him through decades of being underestimated. When Jamal's mother, Denise, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer during his sophomore year of community college, the choice was clear. Transfer to a 4-year university meant student loans, living expenses, and time away from home. His mother needed him more than he needed a prestigious degree. He worked 3 jobs while completing his associate degree in mechanical engineering. Nights at a gas station, weekends at an auto parts store, early mornings cleaning office buildings. His grades remained perfect despite exhaustion that left him sleeping in library chairs between classes. The community college professors recognized his exceptional talent. Dr. Martinez, who taught at MIT before settling into a quieter academic life, pulled Jamal aside after a particularly brilliant presentation on engine efficiency optimization. "You have a gift," she said simply. "I've seen Harvard graduates with less intuitive understanding of mechanical systems." Don't let circumstances dim that light. But circumstances were relentless. Cancer treatments consumed every spare dollar. Insurance covered 60% of the chemotherapy costs, leaving thousands in monthly expenses. Jamal's part-time jobs became a full-time necessity. His transfer applications for 4-year universities remained unsubmitted in a folder labeled someday. After graduation, he found work wherever he could use his skills. Small repair shops, industrial maintenance, eventually landing at Tech Vanguard through a temporary agency that promised technical consultant opportunities. Reality was different, but the paycheck covered his mother's medical bills. 3 years later, he still carried his grandfather's philosophy like a sacred flame. Every night, he studied engineering journals and technical manuals, keeping his knowledge current despite his janitorial duties. Online courses in automotive engineering, AI systems integration, and advanced diagnostics filled his free hours. His studio apartment was crammed with textbooks, technical journals, and salvaged engine parts he studied like archaeological artifacts. Samuel's voice echoed in his mind during the darkest moments. The engine doesn't care about your circumstances, boy. It just wants someone who understands its language. Standing in Tech Vanguard's auditorium, facing 200 skeptical faces and Victoria's predatory smile, Jamal felt his grandfather's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. The broken engine wasn't different from that Mustang in 1995. It just needed someone who could hear its true voice. The real test was about to begin. The auditorium fell into a silence so complete that the building's ventilation system sounded like rushing wind. Victoria Sterling stood frozen at the podium, her manicured fingers gripping the microphone stand until her knuckles turned white. She hadn't expected this moment, a janitor challenging her in front of investors who could make or break her company's future. Klaus Mueller leaned forward in his front row seat, his steel-gray eyes fixed on Jamal with the intensity of a hawk spotting prey. Beside him, Dr. Elena Rodriguez set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision, her legendary engineering instincts suddenly alert. The other German investors whispered in rapid, harsh consonants that cut through the tension like scattered glass. Victoria's mind raced through possibilities. She could dismiss Jamal's comment, maintain her authority, and proceed with the termination announcement. But something in Klaus Mueller's expression stopped her. The German industrialist was studying Jamal with the same focus he'd reserved for a promising prototype. This wasn't the time for quick dismissals. A cruel smile spread across Victoria's lips as a better idea crystallized. Why simply fire him when she could destroy him publicly? Make an example that would terrify every employee into absolute compliance while entertaining her German guests with American corporate theater. Well, she said, her voice amplified through the auditorium's sound system. Our maintenance consultant has an opinion about advanced engineering. The word maintenance dripped with venom that made several employees cringe visibly. She stepped away from the podium, her red Louis Vuitton heels clicking against the stage's polished wood. Jamal Washington, isn't it? The man who empties our trash cans and mops our floors, thinks he understands what 67 MIT and Harvard graduates couldn't solve. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between horror and fascination. This was a corporate blood sport, and everyone knew it. Dr. Rodriguez pulled out her leather notebook, uncapping an expensive fountain pen. In her 40 years of engineering, she'd witnessed countless moments when breakthrough solutions emerged from unexpected sources. Her mentor at Stanford had taught her never to dismiss insights based on their origin. Genius wore many disguises. Since you're so confident, Victoria continued, her voice rising with theatrical flair, here's your chance to prove it. Fix our $2 million engine that stumped our best engineers for 6 weeks. Do it in front of everyone, our board, our investors, our entire company. She gestured toward the German delegation like a game show host presenting prizes. These gentlemen represent $100 million in potential funding. They came to see American innovation at work. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. Klaus Muller's expression remained unreadable, but his assistant was already typing notes on a tablet. Whatever happened next would be documented, analyzed, and reported back to Munich. American corporate culture was apparently more entertaining than anticipated. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper that the microphone caught and amplified throughout the auditorium. Here are the stakes, Jamal. You have exactly 2 hours to diagnose and repair what our MIT-trained engineers couldn't fix in 6 weeks. If you succeed, which we both know you won't, I'll personally promote you to senior engineering consultant with a salary that matches your inflated ego. The auditorium buzzed with shocked murmurs. Senior engineering consultant positions paid 6 figures and came with stock options. It was an absurd offer for someone whose current job description included emptying waste baskets. But when you fail, Victoria continued, her smile sharp enough to draw blood, you're not just fired, you're banned from this building permanently. Security will escort you out, and I'll personally ensure that every tech company in Silicon Valley knows about your spectacular failure. She snapped her fingers, and 2 security guards materialized at the auditorium side doors like summoned demons. Their presence wasn't subtle. This was intimidation theater designed to terrify anyone else who might consider challenging authority. Dr. Rodriguez stood up suddenly, her movement commanding attention throughout the room. At 62, Elena Rodriguez commanded respect that transcended corporate hierarchies. Her work at Tesla had revolutionized electric vehicle powertrains. Her consulting firm counted every major automotive manufacturer as clients. When she spoke, engineers listened. I'll serve as technical witness, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering matters. This test requires neutral oversight to ensure fairness and accuracy. Victoria's smile flickered momentarily. She hadn't anticipated this development. Dr. Rodriguez's involvement legitimized the challenge, transforming it from corporate humiliation into a formal technical evaluation. Klaus Mueller nodded approvingly. Excellent. Herr Washington, you have our complete attention. His English was precise, carrying the weight of industrial authority that had built German engineering reputation. We are curious to see American problem-solving methods. The auditorium erupted in whispered conversations. Employees pulled out smartphones already composing texts and social media posts about the unfolding drama. This was the kind of corporate theater that would be discussed in Silicon Valley bars for months. Victoria realized she'd lost control of the narrative, but it was too late to retreat. Fine, she said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. Dr. Rodriguez can witness your inevitable failure, but I'm adding one more condition. She gestured toward the cameras that Tech Vanguard used for employee training and company announcements. We're live streaming this entire challenge on our company social media accounts. Let the world see what happens when unqualified people attempt jobs beyond their capabilities. The live stream suggestions sparked immediate activity. Marketing assistants scrambled to set up professional lighting and camera angles. Social media managers began crafting hashtags. Tech Vanguard Challenge #engineering test. Innovation at work. Within minutes, the company's Instagram and LinkedIn accounts would be broadcasting live footage to thousands of followers. Jamal stood motionless throughout this corporate circus, his maintenance cart still beside him like a faithful companion. His callous hands remained steady despite the earthquake of attention focused on his every breath. This was the moment Samuel Washington had prepared him for, not through specific training, but through a lifetime of understanding that engines responded to competence regardless of credentials. Dr. Rodriguez walked down the auditorium aisle, her heels making confident sounds against polished concrete. She stopped directly in front of Jamal, studying his face with the intensity of someone who'd spent decades evaluating technical talent. "Young man," she said quietly, her voice meant only for his ears, "are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? This isn't just about fixing an engine. Your entire future is at stake." Jamal met her gaze steadily. "Ma'am, I've been listening to engines my whole life. This one's been trying to tell us what's wrong. We just haven't been hearing it correctly." Dr. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Something in his eyes reminded her of the young engineers she'd mentored at Tesla, that combination of knowledge, intuition, and quiet confidence that separated true talent from mere education. "Very well," she said loud enough for the microphones to capture. "Let's see what you can do." The challenge was officially accepted. 2 hours to prove or destroy a lifetime of hidden expertise. The engine waited in the boardroom like a mechanical judge, its silent testimony about to determine one man's destiny. The crowd began moving toward the executive floor, smartphones recording every step of this unprecedented corporate drama. The executive boardroom transformed into an amphitheater of judgment. 200 employees pressed against the glass walls, their faces creating a mosaic of anticipation and doubt. The German investors arranged themselves in executive leather chairs like a tribunal. Klaus Mueller checking his platinum watch with Germanic precision. Dr. Rodriguez positioned herself beside the engine with the authority of someone who'd witnessed countless moments of engineering truth. The broken engine dominated the conference table like a technological altar. Chrome and steel components caught the LED lighting, creating shadows that seemed to pulse with mechanical possibility. Diagnostic equipment surrounded the machine laptops, displaying endless error codes, oscilloscopes tracing electromagnetic signatures, temperature sensors monitoring thermal patterns that had confounded engineers for 6 weeks. Victoria Sterling stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette framed against the Silicon Valley skyline. Her smartphone live-streamed the scene to Tech Vanguard's social media accounts. Viewer numbers climbing rapidly as word spread through tech industry networks. The comments section is filled with predictions, mostly favoring spectacular failure. Jamal approached the engine slowly, his maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the expensive suits surrounding him. The crowd's whispers died as he placed both hands flat against the engine block, closing his eyes with the reverence of a musician tuning a precious instrument. The first 30 seconds stretched like hours. Employees exchanged skeptical glances. A few engineering team members smirked, already composing resignation letters in case the company collapsed from this public relations disaster. But Dr. Rodriguez watched with growing interest as Jamal's expression changed from concentration to recognition. "It's fighting itself," Jamal said suddenly, his voice carrying clearly through the boardroom. "Acoustics. The AI system is perfect, but it's trying to compensate for mechanical problems that shouldn't exist." He opened his eyes, looking directly at Klaus Mueller. "Sir, this engine was manufactured in Munich using metric specifications." "Correct, but the AI calibration was programmed here in California." Klaus Muller's eyebrows rose slightly. "This is correct. Our precision is to hundredths of millim. American programming typically uses imperial measurements." Victoria's confident expression flickered momentarily. She hadn't expected technical dialogue that revealed actual knowledge of the manufacturing process. Jamal nodded, his hands still resting on the engine. "That's the first problem. The AI is trying to control mechanical components that are zeros, 3 indifferent from what it expects. It's like trying to conduct an orchestra when every instrument is tuned to a slightly different key. First discovery, the sound diagnosis. "May I start the engine?" Jamal asked Dr. Rodriguez, who nodded with growing curiosity. The machine roared to life, filling the boardroom with the deep rumble of controlled explosions. But where others heard normal engine sounds, Jamal heard a conversation. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Engines speak to those who know their language. Listen," he said, raising his voice over the mechanical symphony. "At 2800 RPM, there's a harmonic frequency mismatch. The pistons are hitting their optimal rhythm, but the AI sensors are reading vibrations that don't match the programmed parameters." He pointed to the diagnostic screen displaying incomprehensible data streams. Your engineers have been chasing software ghosts when the problem is mechanical harmony. The engine runs for exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds before overheating because that's when the harmonic mismatch reaches critical resonance. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her engineering instincts fully engaged, explained the harmonic theory. Every engine has a natural frequency, the RPM range where all components work in perfect synchronization. This engine was designed to operate at 300–400 RPM optimal efficiency, but the AI system was calibrated to expect imperial measurements. So, it's trying to maintain a different harmonic frequency than what the mechanical components can deliver. He gestured toward the oscilloscope, displaying wave patterns. See those irregular spikes at 14-minute intervals? That's the engine trying to find its natural rhythm while the AI forces it into an artificial pattern. Marcus Brooks, the MIT-trained team leader, pushed through the crowd. That's impossible. We tested harmonic frequencies extensively during development. Jamal looked at him with respectful disagreement. You tested the frequencies that the AI was programmed to expect, but the actual mechanical components are singing a slightly different song. Klaus Muller exchanged glances with his associates. This wasn't the rambling of an unqualified maintenance worker. This was sophisticated acoustic engineering analysis that addressed fundamental design integration issues. Second discovery, the measurement revelation. Jamal moved to the engine's technical documentation, spreading blueprints across the polished conference table. His finger traced specifications with the precision of someone who'd studied these documents during countless late-night cleaning sessions. The crankshaft was machined in Munich to 87. 63 mm diameter, he said, pointing to German engineering specifications. But the AI calibration assumes 450 in, which converts to 87. 663 mm, mathematically identical but mechanically different. Dr. Rodriguez leaned over the blueprints, her fountain pen following his calculations. Continue. Manufacturing tolerance in Germany allows plus or minus 0.001 mm. American tolerance typically allows plus or minus 0.005 in, which is roughly 127 mm. The German components are manufactured to much tighter tolerances than the AI system expects. He pulled out a digital caliper from the diagnostic equipment, measuring various engine components with practice efficiency. The pistons, connecting rods, even the timing chain, everything is manufactured to German precision standards, but the AI assumes American tolerance ranges. This creates a cascading synchronization error. Jamal continued, his confidence growing as the technical logic unfolded. The AI constantly micro-adjusts, trying to compensate for imprecisions that don't actually exist. It's like a conductor trying to correct musicians who are already playing perfectly. Victoria's live stream comments exploded with engineering discussions. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks, and several Tesla and Ford engineers joined the conversation with technical questions and grudging admiration. Marcus Brooks studied the measurements, his expression shifting from skepticism to amazement. The tolerance differential creates cumulative timing errors, he muttered, his MIT training finally connecting with Jamal's intuitive analysis. Klaus Muller stood up, examining the measurements himself. German engineering pride demanded verification of any claims about manufacturing precision. After several minutes of careful calculation, he nodded slowly. The analysis is mathematically correct. Third discovery, elegant solution. So, how do we fix it? Dr. Rodriguez asked, her notebook filled with technical observations. Instead of proposing expensive software modifications or hardware replacements, Jamal walked to a storage cabinet containing spare parts. He selected what appeared to be a simple metal disc, roughly the size of a hockey puck, with carefully calculated perforations. A harmonic dampener, he explained, holding the component up for everyone to see. Instead of reprogramming the AI to match German tolerances or remanufacturing components to American specifications, we add this resonance buffer to bridge the frequency gap. Victoria's confident expression cracked completely. You're suggesting a $1.50 part can solve a problem that's cost us 6 weeks and millions in consulting fees. Sometimes the most elegant engineering solutions are the simplest, Jamal replied. The AI and the engine are both perfect. They just need a translator to help them communicate effectively. He began installing the dampener with movements that spoke of years of mechanical experience. His hands worked with the confident precision of someone who'd rebuilt countless engines in Detroit garages, community college workshops, and late-night apartment complex maintenance sessions. Dr. Rodriguez watched every movement with professional fascination. Where did you learn harmonic resonance engineering? My grandfather taught me that engines have souls, Jamal said, tightening the final connection. You can't fix a soul with software updates. You have to listen to what it's trying to tell you, then help it find its natural rhythm. The installation took 12 minutes. The dampener fit perfectly into existing mounting points, requiring no modifications to the original design. It was engineering elegance at its purest, solving complex problems through simple, intuitive solutions. Ready for testing, Jamal announced, stepping back from the engine. The boardroom fell silent. Klaus Mueller checked his watch again. 1 hour and 47 minutes had elapsed. If Jamal's analysis was correct, the engine should now operate flawlessly. If he was wrong, his career and reputation would be destroyed in the most public way possible. Dr. Rodriguez positioned herself at the diagnostic equipment, her experienced eyes ready to interpret every data stream and measurement. The German investors leaned forward with collective anticipation. Victoria's smartphone captured every moment for thousands of online viewers who'd become invested in this unlikely engineering drama. Start the engine, Dr. Rodriguez commanded. The moment of truth had arrived. 67 previous attempts had failed. Could a maintenance worker with a community college degree succeed where mighty graduates had failed? The engine held its mechanical breath, ready to reveal its secrets to anyone who'd truly learned to listen to its voice. The ignition key turned, and destiny engaged with the sound of perfectly synchronized machinery, finding its natural rhythm for the first time in 6 weeks. The ignition key turned with a metallic click that echoed through the silent boardroom like a gunshot. 200 people held their breath as the engine awakened, its initial rumble filling the space with mechanical thunder that seemed to shake the building steel foundations. But something was different, immediately, unmistakably different. The harsh, irregular knocking that had plagued the engine for 6 weeks was gone. In its place, a smooth purring emerged, the sound of 8 cylinders firing in perfect synchronization, each combustion chamber contributing to a harmony that made Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widen with recognition. This was what automotive perfection sounded like. Jamal stood beside the engine, his hand resting lightly on the vibrating surface, where once he'd felt the desperate struggle of components fighting against each other. Now he sensed the calm confidence of machinery operating within its natural rhythm. The harmonic dampener had worked exactly as his grandfather's wisdom had predicted. The diagnostic screens exploded with green indicators for the first time in 42 days. Temperature readings stabilized in optimal ranges. Pressure sensors registered perfect compression across all cylinders. The AI system's error messages vanished, replaced by steady streams of operational data that made the engineering team gasp in collective amazement. "Mein Gott," Klaus Mueller whispered, his German composure cracking, as he stared at readings that his own Munich engineers had dreamed of achieving. The engine was operating at 97. 3% efficiency, 3 percentage points, higher than theoretical maximum performance. Dr. Rodriguez moved between diagnostic stations like a conductor reading sheet music, her trained eyes absorbing data that told an incredible story. Oil pressure is steady at optimal. Engine temperature holding at 187 degrees F. Harmonic frequency locked at 400 RPM with 0 deviation. She looked up at Jamal with something approaching reverence. "In 40 years of automotive engineering, I've never seen diagnostic readings this clean. Your grandfather would be proud." The real test came when Victoria, her face pale with growing realization, demanded the full operational challenge. "Fine, it's running. But can it actually power our autonomous vehicle systems under real-world conditions? The boardroom's floor toe-sailing windows. Employees could see Tech Vanguard's prototype delivery truck parked in the courtyard below. The vehicle had sat motionless for weeks, its advanced navigation systems useless without a functioning power source. Jamal nodded toward the truck with quiet confidence. Let's see what she can do. The engine's power flowed through transmission systems, electrical generators, and computerized networks with the smoothness of water finding its level. Dashboard lights illuminated in sequence as the autonomous vehicle's brain came online for the first time. In 6 weeks, GPS systems activated, radar sensors began scanning, camera arrays focused with mechanical precision. The crowd pressed against the windows as the truck's headlights brightened, its electric systems drawing power from the perfectly synchronized engine. Slowly, almost ceremonially, the vehicle began to move. It backed out of its parking space with computer-controlled precision, navigated around landscaping obstacles, and executed a flawless parallel parking maneuver that drew spontaneous applause from the watching employees. For 37 minutes, the engine ran without a single irregularity. The dreaded 14-minute shutdown point passed without incident. 20 minutes beyond that, the systems continued operating with German engineering precision, powered by American innovation and guided by Detroit mechanical wisdom. Klaus Mueller's assistant was typing furiously on her tablet, documenting performance metrics that exceeded every specification in their original investment proposal. The other German investors huddled in rapid conversation, their expressions shifting from skepticism to amazement to barely contained excitement about partnership possibilities. Victoria's live stream had attracted over 50,000 viewers. The comments section scrolling too rapidly to read individual messages. Tech industry professionals, automotive engineers, and random internet observers were witnessing something unprecedented. A maintenance worker solving problems that had stumped teams of credentialed experts. Shut it down, Dr. Rodriguez finally commanded. We've seen enough. The engine settled into silence with the satisfied sigh of machinery that had finally found its purpose. The diagnostic screens maintained their green glow for several seconds before fading. To standby mode, the autonomous truck returned to its parking space and powered down its systems with electronic contentment. The boardroom remained silent for long moments as the magnitude of what had just occurred settled into collective consciousness. 6 weeks of failure had been resolved in under 2 hours by someone whose official job description included emptying waste baskets. Dr. Rodriguez walked to Jamal, extending her hand with formal respect. That was extraordinary engineering intuition. Where others saw software problems, you heard mechanical poetry. Your solution was elegant. Cost-effective and brilliant, Klaus Muller approached next, his handshake firm with German approval. Herr Washington, your diagnostic methodology impressed our entire delegation. This is the kind of innovative thinking that builds industrial partnerships. Victoria stood frozen near the windows, her smartphone still recording a live stream that had become her own professional obituary. The comments were no longer about Jamal's inevitable failure. They were celebrating his triumph and questioning her leadership judgment. The moment of truth had passed. What came next would determine whether justice was possible in corporate America, and whether talent could triumph over prejudice when the stakes were measured in millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. But first, the world needed to see what happened when the underestimated finally got their chance to prove what they'd always known about themselves. Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut through the boardroom silence with the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering decisions. Based on this demonstration, I'm making an immediate recommendation to the board. She turned to face Klaus Mueller and the German investors, her words carrying the weight of 4 decades in automotive engineering. Jamal Washington has demonstrated exceptional diagnostic capability and innovative problem solving that exceeds anything I've witnessed from traditional engineering teams. His analysis was mathematically sound, his solution was elegant, and his execution was flawless. Klaus Müller nodded with Germanic precision. Our delegation concurs completely. Herr Washington's methodology impressed our entire technical evaluation team. He paused, checking notes on his assistant's tablet. We are prepared to increase our investment commitment by 20%, specifically contingent on Mr. Washington leading our European engine development program. The boardroom erupted in whispers. A 20% increase meant an additional 20 million e-funds that could transform Tech Vanguard from a promising startup into a global automotive power player. Furthermore, Dr. Rodriguez continued, her fountain pen poised over official documentation. I'm bypassing normal promotion protocols to offer immediate advancement to Senior Engine Diagnostics Engineer, effective immediately. The salary adjustment will reflect market value for someone with demonstrated expertise in advanced harmonic engineering. Victoria's live stream comments exploded with celebration. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks, and several competing tech companies were already reaching out through social media with recruitment offers. #Jamal Washington began trending as automotive engineers worldwide discussed the technical brilliance they just witnessed. Marcus Brooks stepped forward from the MIT-trained engineering team, his expression a mixture of humility and professional respect. Our entire team formally apologizes for overlooking your insights. We request collaboration on future projects, and we'd be honored to learn from your diagnostic methodologies. The transformation was complete. In less than 2 hours, Jamal had evolved from invisible maintenance worker to respected senior engineer, from overlooked janitor to sought-after technical leader. The German partnership was secured, the engine crisis was resolved, and Tech Vanguard's future was brighter than anyone had imagined. But the most satisfying moment was yet to come. Victoria Sterling still stood frozen by the windows, her smartphone capturing her own professional downfall for thousands of viewers who were about to witness what happened when arrogance met accountability in corporate America. The boardroom's atmosphere shifted like a storm front moving across Silicon Valley. What had begun as Victoria's public humiliation theater was now her professional reckoning. The German investors exchanged meaningful glances, their expressions revealing calculations that extended far beyond technical assessments. Klaus Müller's assistant whispered urgent updates about social media reaction. The live stream had reached over 100,000 viewers, with tech industry leaders sharing the video across LinkedIn and Twitter. Comments ranged from celebration of Jamal's triumph to harsh criticism of Victoria's leadership style. #Tech Vanguard drama was trending alongside #engineering justice. Dr. Rodriguez closed her leather notebook with deliberate finality, her fountain pen clicking with the sound of decisions being made. The board will require a comprehensive review of management practices that led to this situation, specifically how qualified personnel were systematically underutilized while expensive consulting teams failed to achieve basic operational objectives. Victoria's face had drained of color, her confident corporate mask cracking under the weight of very public consequences. She'd orchestrated this challenge, expecting easy victory, never anticipating that her victim would possess the very expertise her company desperately needed. The German delegation has concerns, Klaus Müller announced, his precise English carrying undertones that made venture capitalists nervous. Our partnership requires confidence in leadership decision-making. Today's events suggest systematic evaluation errors that could impact our joint venture success. Board member Patricia Brooks, who'd remained silent during the technical demonstration, now spoke with the authority of someone holding significant stock options. This incident will require investigation by our governance committee. We need to understand how a senior engineering consultant was relegated to maintenance duties while his expertise could have prevented 6 weeks of operational failure. The investigation wouldn't take long. Victoria's email history provided damning evidence of discriminatory practices, messages referring to Jamal as the cleaning guy despite his official consultant title, deliberate scheduling of his janitorial duties during important investor meetings, documented discussions about his inevitable termination as cost-cutting theater. Human Resources Director Jennifer Walsh, who participated in the cruel email threads with laughing emojis, found herself summoned to emergency meetings about hostile workplace environment policies. The viral video had become legal evidence, and corporate lawyers were already discussing settlement strategies. Weeks later, the consequences crystallized with surgical precision. Victoria was demoted from chief executive officer to strategic advisor. Her salary reduced by 40% while her decision-making authority evaporated. She retained employment. The board wasn't interested in wrongful termination lawsuits, but her corporate power had been neutered completely. The diversity and inclusion training requirement felt particularly poetic. Victoria, who'd spent 3 years dismissing Jamal's potential, now sat through workshops about unconscious bias and inclusive leadership. Her trainer was Dr. Rodriguez, who approached education with the same methodical precision she applied to engineering problems. Meanwhile, Jamal's transformation continued beyond individual success. His promotion to senior engineering diagnostics came with a 150% salary increase, stock options, and leadership of a task force on inclusive innovation practices. The company implemented new policies requiring formal review of all employee suggestions, regardless of source or current position. Tech Vanguard's stock price rose 15% following the positive publicity. The viral video had become an unexpected marketing asset, demonstrating the company's commitment to recognizing talent wherever it emerged. Recruitment applications increased by 40%, with many candidates specifically mentioning the inspiring story of meritocracy triumph. The most satisfying moment came 3 months later when Victoria approached Jamal privately in the employee cafeteria. Her designer suit had been replaced with more modest professional attire, her arrogant demeanor softened by hard lessons about humility and respect. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, her words carrying genuine remorse, "and I'd like to ask for guidance about building more inclusive leadership practices." Jamal looked at her with the same grace his grandfather had shown to customers